King Von's spirit or soul is trapped in some witch's studio in Atlanta, a room in that studio. Is this true? It could never. First of all, um, this story kind of originated, it seems like, from the Queen Domain and Trap House Kitchen interview, which I did a short video on. And I didn't really even address that in the video that I did, just my opinion on it. But even Queen Domain points out when they ask her about the soul that there's really no power over the soul. Um, it doesn't belong to anybody. It returns back to the original source, and so she kind of points that out. But deception is based on appearance. And I kind of touch on that in this other video. Just like lies, uh, the foundation of a good lie that endures is truth, right? And so I have no doubt that, um, and I explained in that other video, I have no doubt that she may have even heard what she knew to be his voice, felt like she heard his energy, and it is a deception. Much like she says that this witch appeared to her as someone else. They have that ability, right? Again, deception is based on appearance. And when she got to Atlanta, this was a total different person. And I think she said the person admitted to posing as that person to her. And her having that power, still being able to be deceived. Do you get where I'm going with this? So, I have no doubt that that's what she in fact believes, but whatever spirit or whatever she heard is not a spirit that has lived. I know people say that when people are killed and their spirits roam and they're angry and they can't make it to the other side. All of that is like fiction. I'm definitely gonna just give you some thoughts and theories that I personally believe. So you have you know you have people, and a lot of people turn people off, even from, and I would not say religion because I'm not a religious person, but they turn people off from that book, our book, right? That tells our history, that documents the things that hinder us, tell us the things that are just, out of whack, puts our whole being and existence, at risk and, out of alignment, basically. Destroying yourself and how not to do that and find your way back. So you have people who turn people off from this book because the very people who use God's name, right? They do all of these things sometimes, especially when children see things like this. Children are very big on contradictions, and it's the same with even adults. They rather look at what you do as opposed to what you say. You cannot shove information down a person's throat when they're not ready for it. What you can do is you can keep yourself, you could present yourself, or you could have an open mind. You can meet people where they are. You can respect others' differences. And you can show yourself to be a type of person that when a person is ready for information and they seek it out, at that time, someone wise will be able to recognize that. And then you will be in a position in that person's mind to where they will respect what you're saying. And usually that is related definitely to what they see, your actions, the outcome they're looking for. They want to, they aspire to do something or have some change. For them, it's clear that you have went through this process. And so that they can rely on your information, right? And what I mean by people turning people off from the book is that, condemning people to hell, saying that they're evil, karma, and all of these things. These are concepts we all, understand very well, and they have been given names, and we can absolutely see manifestation of them. We can see the phenomena. It's clear, right? But it is not that black and white. It really isn't. So people who use God to condemn people and say based on what they see, a person is evil, they're going to hell, those things, and people attribute that to God, and that's what turns a lot of people off, especially youth, because youth, there's something about them. Their compass, even if they're doing things when they're younger, because they're still growing, right? They're learning. They can call bull, right? They can call bull easily. And we shouldn't be attributing any of people's actions and their lack of understanding to our book, because that's our book, or God, right? And in that book it tells you he understands that so many will be turned off because of the behavior of people who call him, who claim to follow him, believe in his word. But if you would condemn someone else, he points all of that out. And so I just really wish people would read the book. Now, like I said, karma, hell, all of those concepts are not as black and white. And that's why I love, it's pretty much a scripture that says, pretty much, I can't say the exact, but I'm so happy that God is not a man, because a man would send me to hell. The moment he get his life together, he or she, no matter what the past looks like, the moment that they get their lives together and they understand and they're living better, now they want to go directly, skip all over everything, go directly to Book of Revelation. They want God to come back and burn up everybody not living right. And that is not right. It's not right. It's not what's intended. God says God desires for not one soul to perish. So if God decides, if God feels that way, and being God, the true power, what do you think he's doing to get that? What do you think? He doesn't sleep nor slumber, so he's doing everything in his power to save lives. And things may look crazy to us, but if you a betting man, right? And you know the power of God, what you think the odds on that if he doesn't want one soul to perish? Would you take that bet? You wouldn't bet against them, would you? Only a fool would. So I say all that to say, you can't just condemn a person and say what they did in their lives and you don't know the in and out. And that's why a man is not really fit. When I say man, I just mean man or woman, is not really fit in most cases to judge another man, because they don't know the full story. They cannot know the full story. But you have people who try to offer some correction. It may be seen as a form of judgment, but it is out of love. It is not coming out of, you did this, pointing a finger at someone else. When, if we live incorrectly, there's always something to change about ourselves and look at ourselves, something we can help, that we should not be really, in that sense, unless when you speaking on someone, something you feel they did is still out of a place of love, saying, these are your actions. These are not the best actions for you, because they can lead to something worse for you. If you get what I'm saying. So, no one has power over the soul. And this man's soul is not trapped anywhere. Now, I'm going to show you something. I'm going to speak on something. Like I said, no one knows the full story. Only God knows. And can determine what this man was seen as. As we know, in the Bible, you had like Hebrew, nation. And they had many enemies that were raised up against them. And you had warriors, right? And because they were hated, or, you know, because there was an opposition, a hatred for them that really stemmed from hating God. If you really want to be technical, there was always something that sought certain people's lives. They have a right to defend themselves, however it started out. And so there's always been a time for to love, to hate, for war, for peace. Those things happen. So if we're not gonna look at that book and decide, because we have context in the book more about people who were warriors and considered great warriors and loved by God, and he gave them victory every time, or most of the time. And maybe there was a time he didn't give it to them for whatever reason. But we don't have that much context. Even though we have stories and we can see what these people show us, we don't have that much context. We don't know everything, right? And that book is laid out for us for edification and to understand. So it is not that black and white. Now, like I said, God is saving lives. So you guys remember it's a movie with Keanu Reeves. And I forget the name of the movie. Maybe it'll come back to me. But in this movie, he was actually a sin eater. So he would come when someone was like pretty much, they had so much sin, and he would come and he would eat the sin. It would make him sick. It would make him, out of it. And you have this system. You First of all, everybody needs a way to die. We're not going to all die in our sleep. We're not going to all die, at old age. There's an expression that the good die young. The good die young. That does not mean that anybody's living past a certain age is not good. That doesn't mean that. That doesn't also mean that you have some people that die young that people want to look at and say, well, listen, all these person actions was kind of like, you know, bad, like really bad, like heartless or whatever. So, I mean, but again, we don't know everything, right? This young man was able to touch a lot of people. So, and upon his death, he touched so many people that when he died, you don't think that this young man sparked a lot of change because of the character he showed to the world, even with his past. Even people, divided. You even got fans arguing, going crazy, cursing him, mocking his death. You got people want other people. I mean, it got really outrageous. And this is kind of where the internet, has just become, you know, just it's just crazy. It's just a force that is crazy, and it can be very negative, right? And have very negative impact. But for the most part, my point is that God said that he would raise up some of the most foolish things people considered so foolish. He would raise them up. And some of the things that considered themselves to be so, you know, like the cream of the crop, he would bring it low. And you wouldn't understand why he was doing that. You wouldn't understand. So, you raise a young man up like this. He goes through this life, and this could be true for many people. This is not just for King Von. You raise a person like this up with this type of background. You don't think God knew the type of evil that would be present in his day? Of course he did. He speaks about it all through that book. And so it may have been necessary to have someone raised up like this from this background who people respected, loved, hated, even the people who couldn't stand him, to have that notoriety, infamy, and become famous and become a big rapper and affect a lot of people and divide a lot of people, you may have needed that even with the FBG Duck situation right before this. You may have needed this type of atmosphere to now provoke thought. People want change now. People have been wanting change and they've been talking about it. But to really affect the youngsters, to really affect the youngsters because now it's real for them that this term no lacking, which it's a term, but it's not. I don't really care for the term because for young people, sometimes when you hear them speak, it almost sounds like some people think that no lacking, as long as you have a weapon on you, even if you were other people that have weapons, that automatically means that you live through some altercation, and that is not true. And so for these young people, to a lot of young people in many different areas who have followed this young man and watched him and looked up to him, to see this happen to him, it changes minds, it changes thoughts. I did see, matter of fact, shout out to Dirk, came out and said he's not dissing Dead Ops in his song anymore. That was a heavy move. The changes had already been starting. So do you get where I'm going with this? The fact that his life was probably for such to be at this point could have just been his time, but it was used. It was used to create something good. Now, if we think about math, negativity multiplied creates, if you multiply negative numbers in math, it becomes a positive. So great negativity multiplied. Do you see how you make the things that people look as foolish, you turn them into things you don't understand? So we don't, we don't know everything. And the soul doesn't belong to whatever these people think it belongs to. It's not bound. It's no longer in a body. It could be that God decides that at this moment you can be saved. And with this type of background and this type of respect and love, that even your death under these circumstances would change a lot of people. It would provoke thought, even amongst young people who it seems like they're very hard to reach. Some people can't even reach their kids. They can't even talk to them. But this situation right here has spoken to them. So you have to be careful who you condemn and say is evil and good, or what their purpose is, because you don't know that. And the whole thought of bloodshed, I brought up the sin eater concept. And this video is about to end shortly. So now there's a theory that I have because of things that I've seen. Just like the sin eater, along with those other things I described about him being raised up, his background, how it was used and put in position, put on display, and now is a powerful message to youth. And not just youth, people in that game that are not necessarily very young youth. You get what I'm saying? And but also there's the portion of bloodshed. Now, people who shed blood don't always have their blood shed, but a lot of times they do. A lot of times it could be someone else in their family. And sometimes, along with what could have been a messaging and a purpose that God decided to take him at that moment, it, maybe if he had gone forward or woken up from that, he may have reached a point where he could have never been saved and come to what God desired, his soul not perishing. And so it was important to take him for many different reasons, but also the person who shed your blood, and I feel like there's evidence for this if you look in the Bible. When you shed a man's blood, you take on his sin. a person reaches the point where they probably no longer able to carry it either. And that's why essentially someone else sheds the blood, takes the life, and they take on the sin, because now they're in a state where they have a longer time, a longer period to make amends, to try to get themselves to a point and a situation where God can take them. And you know, maybe they don't have to perish. Maybe they can, you know, make amends and do certain things, or you know, that's gonna put them in a position where they can be saved without their actual blood being shed. Or maybe the cycle continues, and whatever they continue, even though they have a longer time to change things or do things that they need to do, because yes, we make decisions, but you also have that appointments where you have things that are set in your life. And so maybe they have their blood eventually, it needs to be shed, but they have more living to do for whatever reason. And so I just wanted to make this, you guys let me know what you think.